Kapler is still at Wrigley Field trying to make another pitching change. But what a huge win for our Chicago Cubs today. Matt, you could hit the start side because I don't have it up, but let's go.
You are Locked On Cubs, your daily Chicago Cubs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, Cubs fans. Alongside Sam Olber, I'm Matt Cozy. We are Locked On Cubs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And thank you to all our everydayers who listen or watch us all year long, from the regular season to the offseason, and right now, the push to the playoffs. Sam and I are lifelong fans, taking our passion into discussion with you on all things Cubs. Today's episode is presented by Sleeper. Swing for the fences on Sleeper picks, and you can win up to 100 times your money. Download the Sleeper app and use promo code Locked On, and you'll get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Check out Sleeper today. Cubs were down 3-0 early on Tuesday and win 11-8. What was a softball score game? Wind was blowing out at Wrigley. Had a suspicion to be that high scoring, and it was. Cubs improved to 75 and 64 on the season. The next win will hit the over on the FanDuel preseason projection of 75.5 wins. Sam, the Northsiders scored a lot tonight, and they continue at a good pace.
Matt, this was really one of those games. I watch a lot of these ball games, pretty much 99.9% of them, and I almost felt like I was in some sort of test or some sort of bad dream. Every time I would get up and come back, there was a new pitcher for the Giants, a pinch hitter. I saw more of Gabe Kapler in this game than I saw their pitchers. Right. And he's still at the ballpark. Somebody needs to tell him to go home. You can't make any changes if there's nobody there. And it was, I mean, keeping score of this game would have been like trying to crack Da Vinci's code.
Oh my gosh, it would have been nuts.
I mean, between the pinch hitters and the pitchers, and it was just a bit much for me, but what an ending it was. I mean, this was one of those games that had one of those stenches early. Hendricks gave up a lucky homer to Yastrzemski, then a run that shouldn't have came across, and then the Cubs scored 4 runs that really were a little bit fortunate when you break down that inning. And then it got swung over to later on, where Hendricks started to get beat up there in the 6th inning. Cubs were down 6-4, and they couldn't elevate the ball. The Giants had 87 guys coming in, and then they brought in their main sinker baller. I think it's Tyler Rogers. There's Tyler and Trevor. They're twins. Mm-hmm. I think it was Tyler Rogers, and he threw one really nice inning, and then he left a pitch up to the hottest hitter on this club that we'll talk about later on that flipped the game. And then, Morel broke it open, and the bullpen did enough to hang on. But this was, they're winning in different ways, Matthew, and the offense seems to be woken up. And this was just a huge win and a huge comeback and a fun one, a long one, but a fun one.
Yeah, pretty much since the Candelario trade early August, the offense has been rolling. Sure, there's a game here and there where, you wonder if they could have done more. And obviously over the weekend with some recency bias, you would have liked to see them score more, especially off some no-name pitchers for the Reds. But for the most part, they've been very productive. And of course, I'm a sucker for offense. I love seeing these types of games. I was the 1-0 game person, and now I'm more of the softball score, where there's just tons of offense. Kyle Hendricks, first 9 hitters, he doesn't do well. Right. First 9, time through the order and a half, even first 13, 14 guys. And then he really settles down. His ERA is just drastically different in those 2 stages of a game. And we're going to talk about this later as well. But, the ebbs and flows of the season and so many high stakes contests have caught up to this team a little bit. Sure. And so it's going to take a Jose Cuas. It's going to take Drew Smiley. specific to the bullpen, where it seems like the team has been more effective by fatigue than other spots on the field.
Lee Smith, Rod Beck.
Nick Madrigal stuck out to me in this game, Sam.
Yeah.
He's had a tremendous year. And again, if you're going to win 85 plus games in a season like this, you had to have a performance like Madrigal throughout the campaign. Once again, Bellinger, it's comical with 2 strikes, what he does. Quietly, Morel was benched over the last 7 days.
Yes.
He had a clutch hit today. So, a lot of good things, and they could possibly get some cleaning supplies out tomorrow.
That would be awesome. And I might buy a new broom to put on the show.
Finally.
Yeah, no, it's past due. I'm glad you mentioned Quas because, he came
ERA in the zeros.
Yeah. And again, that's one of those trades that we've talked about that Jed makes. It's so weird. In free agency, when he tries to attack these marginal moves, they don't seem to go particularly well. But in the trades, he just seems to win most of his trades. And, that deal, obviously Velasquez is a nice player, and I think he's hitting a little bit in Kansas City, but that brings no value to us. We don't have a space for him. So you got this free reliever in Quas who's coming in and pitching high leverage situations and doing a nice job. He seems to stick in pretty good against lefties, and against righties, he's really tough because of his arm angle. He gets a lot of ground balls, and, with the fatigue of Leiter Jr., who seems to have lost a splitter over the last week, Adbert clearly being rested right now. He hasn't pitched since Friday, and Merriweather having his first hiccup since, I don't know, about a month plus. A guy like that, and Fulmer being on the IL, those are the guys that keep things together for you. Those are the guys that are kind of the linchpin when you need to buy an outing or so. Because Ross has quietly done a nice job. Adbert, I talked about it on one of the solo shows. Adbert's looked flat his last few times out, and Ross has quietly not had to use him since Friday because of a guy like Quas stepping up. So credit to him. You don't want to do too much of the credit thing because you'll leave somebody out. When a team has played this well for this long, the list is very long.
It's long, right?
But it starts with Steele and Bellinger, and it gets centered by around the guy we're going to talk about, pretty soon. If you want to jump into that.
And I have to say, the Giants winning 70 games is outstanding. Since late May, they've had 2 starting pitchers.
No, they are an analytical...
you have to say 70 wins is impressive for them.
No, they're an analytical machine. Kapler manages. He is a 2023 manager. They just play platoon matchup after platoon matchup, and it gets
ridiculous, man.
It gets good results, and it could replace Valium or melatonin if you'd like to get some good rest.
Seiya Suzuki is on fire. Since August 9th, he's batting over 350 with an on-base over 400, and that's 7 home runs in that span as well. The Cubs were looking for a breakout player the final 2 months, Sam, and if Suzuki is it, which 25 games is no small sample, that has really translated even further for this team, and it's great.
Matt, I was the last guy to jump off the Seiya bandwagon. I tried to defend him to you. I tried to defend him to your dad, and I said about and I'm not right. I was wrong. I gave up on him.
Oh yeah, you did.
I did. I was the last guy to do it.
Right.
But I did it. I gave up on him, and I was wrong because he has come out. And he is, along with Cody Bellinger, carried this offense now since August 1st. He's been the best hitter on the team.
Yeah, it was that the last game of that Mets series.
And I always knew in my head there's such a nice – and this isn't even – he's capable of doing this all the time. That's what's so frustrating with him.
Right.
But I left him, and I abandoned him. And for that, I apologize because he has become a massive part of this team again. And that home run that he hit off Rodgers is such a good example of how the umpiring is so critical for Seiya Suzuki. Because if you remember that sequence, he took a borderline pitch that was probably a strike, and the Giants catcher, I don't know, they played about 6 of them today, did you remember that? He tried to pick off Swanson at first base.
Yeah.
And he stole the strike. So the ump didn't give it to him. It went 1-1 to 2-1 instead of 1-1 to 1-2. We know the percentage is there. Then it was 3-1. And then he got a hanging slider, and he just got all of it, and it flipped the game. He had 3 other hits, and that's why pennant race baseball not only is so fun, but it makes you a little bit sentimental, because guys that were, afterthoughts all year, and guys that were the subject of major criticism, and rightfully so, on this very program, are completely carrying the team now. And that's why I love the game, because if I could predict this game, I would be really, really wealthy.
No, it's a beautiful game, baseball. My favorite. And he hit a double to left center, 112 miles per hour.
And put a C on Yan Gomes' chest.
Oh, yeah. They should.
I want him. He's the captain of this baseball team.
Oh, without question, player. Without question.
What did he have? 3 more hits today? The difference
think he just got another one. Yeah.
No, the difference between him and Contreras.
Oh, let's not get started. It's only a 20 to 30-minute program.
No, you know what
but no, it's clicking right now, and it's more than, when you talk about Gomes, just to segue into that, it's more than the on-field play.
Oh,
you could just tell what he does and how he handles these pitchers as well.
Oh my God!
But all he does is hit. It has to be a career year for him. I know he was on pace for that.
No, and you make a great point on the pitchers like Steele. I think his ERA is close to like under 2 when he throws to Gomes.
Yeah.
Gomes is great. It's just, listen, they started out the year 26 and 36. They're 75 and 64 now. So whatever that is, that's probably like 105 win pace since then.
Yep.
When you do that, you're going to have a bunch of guys playing well. We haven't even mentioned the solid consistency of Nico Horner. That guy's been a backbone and a straw that stirs this drink. So I'm just so excited. I'm tired, but I'm really excited.
Got it. So, okay.
All right.
Well, and it was good to see Hendricks as well out there after the first pitch home run of the game.
Yeah,
for him to settle down like he did as much as he could.
He was fine. Fine. That's it. These are not Kyle Hendrick nights when it's 95 and the wind's howling out. Give us a chance to win. I tweeted it out. I think I had about maybe 65 to 85,000 tweets during this game.
Yeah, I actually considered doing a segment on some of the tweets.
And I tweeted out, I said, look, to win this game today, you got to start hitting some home runs. The Giants had 3, we had 0. That's not everyone knew coming into this game, you got to hit a homer. And, Suzuki and Morel did, and that was the difference.
I think I like the Krispy Kreme donuts one the best.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll pull that up and read it or something.
Yeah.
Coming up next.
I don't have many friends.
Coming up next, let's talk about navigating what's now these final 23 Michael Jordan ball games.
Who?
Stay tuned. Today's episode is brought to you by Sleeper. Your fantasy baseball team may be out of it, but there's a great way to continue playing fantasy and maybe even make up for lost seasons with Sleeper's daily fantasy picks. Sleeper is offering up to 100 times payout for up to 8 pick contests. That's choosing as many as 8 players that you like, and then you pick more or less on your favorite stats. Maybe that's stolen bases for Nico Horner. Maybe that's home runs for Cody Bellinger. Sam Dansby Swanson is getting some more hits. Maybe you pick more or less on Swanson hits, Steele strikeouts, Alzolay strikeouts, and a whole lot more. Use promo code Locked On. You'll get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details to check out Sleeper today. The Cubs play the Giants at 1:20 p.m. Central Wednesday, and you can listen to every pitch with the Cubs hometown broadcast on Sirius XM. On the SXM app, search Cubs or tune in to channel 844 and catch the Cubs all season long on Sirius XM. Ups and downs of a season, lots of games, lots of meaningful games. for the Cubs, especially since the middle of July. The run really began June 9th, but even since mid-July, they've been outstanding. But there might be a few players, Sam, who've hit a wall, and the Cubs are taking action. And I would say ultimately appropriate action by telling these guys to take a seat. It's mostly apparent in the bullpen as Merriweather just returned from a layoff.
Right.
Leiter was publicly outed as being gassed, and Alzolay is in the gym shoes right now as well. What are your thoughts currently about these final 23 and maybe some of the load management, to steal a term from another sport?
Yeah, not a good one.
No.
Yeah, I the load management drives me nuts in basketball.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's something to do with not the amount of games, but the stress in the games. Off the air, I compared it to you to, like, think about a pitcher that throws 95 pitches. Throwing 95 pitches when the game's 9-0 and there's nobody on base is a lot different than throwing 95 pitches in a playoff game 7 with guys all over the bases, right? Stress adds to mental fatigue, whether it's baseball, basketball, or life. Everybody has it.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think it's a combination of high stress, high volume games, because you got to remember they were playing these type of games before the trade deadline, but because before they were in an official pennant race, they were in a race against against themselves, trying to convince the front office not to trade Stroman, not to trade Bellinger, and not to be sellers at the deadline. To do that, they had to win 8 games in a row. I mean, Jed Hoyer said himself, It wasn't until Mike Tauchman robbed that home run at Busch Stadium where he said, hey, we cannot sell, we need to buy. So that was the first mini hurdle. That was the first victory. And then you actually have to go get the job done and make the postseason. So in doing so, you've played a lot of high leverage games. You can't waste games, and they've played a lot of close games. So when you put that all together, a guy like Leiter Jr., who hasn't pitched this deep into a season ever, same with Adbert, probably a little bit fatigued. I'm not sure what's going on with Bellinger. He looked a little weird out there defensively today.
Maybe a little, yeah.
And remember, he's coming off back-to-back days where he DH'd.
Correct.
So he was having some physical issues.
Mm-hmm.
But, it's part of the season. Teams like the Braves and Dodgers can afford to just take their foot off the gas pedal and let it be. Whereas the Cubs are in a serious pennant race. They're still very much alive in the division. So they have to, figure out a way to manage it without hurting their team. But guys like Palencia have stepped up. We've talked about Quas, Suzuki doing a heavy lifting, allowing Dansby to get rid of his slump. So Dansby will get hot soon. Madrigal, you mentioned, Morel will probably come back. The next guy I'd like to see contribute like tomorrow, because I'm sure Gomes will get the day, is a guy like Amaya, in that backup role, because you do want, Yan Gomes is an older guy and he's taxed a lot of miles on his legs. But yeah, it's it's part of it's part of the season. It's part of a pennant race. And, the Cubs were in a unique situation. Most teams that are in a pennant race, it doesn't start in the middle of July like it did for the Cubs. And that's what happened.
Yeah, no, it's well said. I'm actually going to decide not to expand on that as the executive producer. And throughout the show, I have bookmarked some questions, which, is a little out of my comfort zone, but I think these are good ones. And,
can I say one thing?
I'd like to involve the audience more when I'm here, because you did. Yeah. You proved to do an outstanding job on it. And if I can say publicly to 500 live people, and then, of course, the thousands on demand, you did an outstanding job live, and I enjoyed the shows.
I appreciate that coming from you. Can I just say one thing, a little off topic? That route left field by Jock Peterson today, I mean, that was like when you used to hit me and Nick fly balls in the wind. I mean, he looked like he had never fielded a grounder in his life. Candelario, by the way, is scuffling a little bit. He got that cheap double, but I'd like to see him get some hits. Go ahead.
Well, I noticed he's making a lot of weak contact early in the count.
Yeah.
Or ahead in the count. Which is worse.
Which is worse.
So, yeah, good memories hitting fly balls in the thick of the pandemic to you guys.
Yeah.
All right, let's see here. So there was some news today, as a matter of fact, on Stroman. This is from Clark. Will Stroman make it back for the playoff run? I think there's a good chance. I assume he will. He will definitely be more helpful than Tyone. So Stroman threw a bullpen on Monday, 30-plus pitches, 35, and it went well. Reports out of Sloan were that he was high-fiving the coaches and catchers that were there.
Right.
And that is a major story that, quite frankly, we're not really talking about yet. And I suppose we are now. And that is that the Cubs' number one pitcher to start the year, and that he became like 1B with Steele before he ran into a huge scuffles himself, could return before the end of the year. And even if he throws one time through the order, let's say, to open a game, that would be a big addition in September.
Well, Clark, I've never met you, but I let me tell you this: if you put your glove on and start stretching, you could be more helpful than Tyone down the stretch. But as far as as far as Stroman goes, yeah, it's a huge story. I think Ross made it sound like today he's not going to be back anytime soon. I threw out like I said 2-3 weeks. I was hoping yesterday after a bullpen. That doesn't sound that doesn't sound great. The goal would be this. Let's just say it like this. The goal would be to get him 1 or 2 starts before a potential playoff series. And then you use him. The question at that point becomes a great problem is that enough starts to overtake a guy like Assad or Wicks or Hendricks? My thing is it's a 3-game series. If one of those guys gets in trouble early, you go to Stroman. He's at least an asset. Extra innings, something like that. But you cross that bridge when you get there. You just want as many assets as you can, and then it's on Ross and Hoyer to figure out how to use them. And I think, to answer the question in short, yes, I think he's going to be back for the playoff push.
Let's stick with some pitching right now from Jeff. We mentioned Leiter's workload, but are we worried about him?
Yes.
I think so too.
He's a one-pitch pitcher that has gotten this far off of his splitter. Why is his splitter so effective against lefties, Jeff? It has the same type of effect as a changeup, right? Those type of pitches, those fast to slow pitches that drop in the zone really take much more effect on opposite sides. That's why he's been their lefty. When he doesn't have that pitch, he is a AAA pitcher. And I mean no disrespect to MLJ. I've been his biggest fan. I was his biggest fan before the season started. Yes. But if he doesn't figure out a way to find that pitch, he's going to lose his high leverage role very soon. He has not had it now in 3 or 4 straight outings.
Donnie asks a question here, and I have breaking news for you.
Yeah.
I saw Alexander Canario sitting next to Javier Assad during tonight's ball game. Once again, that was a Cubs 11-8 victory over the Giants. Canario is with the team, and I think that's where we're going to leave it for now because
you said so.
I think we've discussed it enough.
Yeah.
From Darren, one of our everydayers, Swanson still needs a day off. How about Nico at short, Madrigal or Merrill at second for a day?
Yeah, love Darren. Definitely not Morel at second. I just think it's tough to give him a day because he wants to play. It's a pennant race, and right. I know we made a bad error today, but his defense, the defense with Swanson and Horner up the middle versus Horner and whoever you put at second it's such a massive drop off that could cost you a game. I'm not sure it's worth it at this point. I think Dansby's just going through it. I'm not really sure it's a fatigue thing. I mean, this is a guy that missed a large part of the year by his standards with the heel injury. So I don't think he's that mentally tired or physically tired. And this is also a guy who's won a World Series and been deep in the playoffs. So I don't think he's tired. I just don't think he's hitting. And I think eventually he'll hit, but maybe move him down. I'd be in support of that. But I don't think sitting him is worth the risk defensively because that tandem up the middle is by far the best defensive tandem in this league.
Yeah, and Sanchez says Nico for Golden Glove. Who else would win it, Sanchez?
It's between him and Bryce Terang.
No.
Yeah, it is.
No, if you can't win an award for a team that might move out of their city.
It's between Nico and Bryce Terang. You can't win
an award for your team that gives out free tickets.
Yeah, right.
Okay?
Well, no.
Steele should win the Cy Young. Horner should win the Gold Glove. Swanson should win the Gold Glove. Bellinger MVP.
Yeah, well,
David Ross Manager of the Year.
No,
Jed
no,
Hoyer Executive of the Year.
Ronald Acuna is calling in. Hi, Ronald. He's kidding. Well, you know who shouldn't win a Gold Glove this year? Ian Happ. Anyway,
Sam, where are you at with projected records? I know you said 87 ball games. Thomas says Cubs go 17-6 to win 92. That seems ambitious, but I like it.
no, I've been sitting between about 87 and 89 for a bit.
Yeah,
90,
I know.
Could you imagine if 90? I mean, if this team won
90 would be wild.
And you want to know what's so great, guys, and I want our listeners to really enjoy this. What's today? Today, as we record, it's a Tuesday night, yeah? Oh,
Yeah.
boy. Weird.
September 5th.
So we're what, 5-6 days away from the Bears opener, and I couldn't care less.
Right? I don't know if I'm going to watch that game.
No, like usually about this time of year when the Cubs stink,
I get excited.
I'm just chomping at the bit for that kickoff.
At least for the first game.
Yeah, I'm like a caged animal.
Right.
And now I might be watching the final few outs of a Cubs D-backs game.
Oh, of course.
So this is awesome. And yeah, you know, they may win 80. You know, I'm anywhere between 87 and 89, 90 right now. You know, I hate going to Coors Field, which is what they got doing there. It's like an arcade over there.
Right.
But listen.
No, I'm getting nervous about the Bears. I don't know if I'm having some questions about Field. So anyways, that's for Lauren Cox on the Locked On Bears. Check out that program. He doesn't need our help. We'll plug it anyways. So hopefully he's plugging us as well. I don't know his baseball fandom. So Cubs go for the sweep on Wednesday against the Giants of San Fran. It's going to be Jordan Wicks, the rookie sensation.
Versus who?
Ball against an opener.
Oh, boy.
Okay, so the Giants will announce that probably about 10:20 a.m. tomorrow. And hopefully the Cubs can get out the brooms, and we'll be back here on Thursday for another great edition of Locked On Cubs. Also, if you're an audio peep or if you're not, now is a great time to download the show on Apple. If you haven't left a review yet, leave a 5-star review. Even throw a comment in there if you want. We enter... as of this recording, we're 17th on the charts. Let's get to the top 10 this week, fam.
Yeah.
Okay. Help us out on Apple. It helps with reviews as well. So that's why we're going to try to shout that out at the end here. Thanks so much for checking out.
I'm going to go to sleep and watch the Diamondbacks.
And maybe the Padres could help us out a tad by beating the Fighting Phil.
They're up a touchdown.
Wow. Fantastic. Yeah. Thank you so much for checking out this edition of Locked On Cubs. We are with you each and every weekday talking all things Cubs. Be sure to hit subscribe on YouTube and hit follow on Apple and Spotify. We're also streaming on Sirius XM. He's Sam Olber. I'm Matt Cozy, and you are now Locked On Cubs.